Well, you're sitting on a 16-acre plot of land right here that was originally called Vestavia. It was the name given the property by its first owner, George Ward. He served as the mayor of Birmingham in the early 1900s. It was truly the first home in what would become Vestavia Hills, a community built on what the founders considered necessities, one of which was churches. Some might say it's a coincidence that this property, Vestavia, is now home to one of the oldest churches in Vestavia Hills. We believe it was something more than simple chance.
As I grew up as a kid, that was kind of a status symbol in Birmingham, that we're going to move over the mountain. That means you made $1 or $2 more than you used to make. And so they would move into this area.
In those early years, those over-the-mountain years, the very first Vestavia Hills churches were formed. Shades Mountain Baptist Church, the Episcopal Church of the Ascension, our Methodist Church, our Baptist Church, Southminster Presbyterian Church, our Lutheran Church. These 6 churches, equally diverse and committed to community, laid a foundation that built a city.
And I would come from the north side of town through downtown Birmingham, and then you weaved a crooked road, what is now Green Springs Highway. In the outskirts was a little white frame building, T across the back, that was called Shades Mountain Baptist Church.
When this became a city, Marshall Bergen felt that if this city was going to form and really be a community for families, it needed a church. It needed, as he thought, a Methodist church. In 1952, on October the 19th, the first meeting was held of the Methodist Church in this area. It was held actually in the community center at that time, which was a community center, it was the nursery school, and it was a dance studio. But on Sunday morning, it was the Methodist Church.
This church, Southminster, did start in City Hall in Vestavia, had its services there, and it was Reverend Gatlin who was here to bring the church over to this site.
You actually had 2 churches meeting at City Hall at the same time in the 50s. Southminster Presbyterian was the other church that was meeting there, and they met at 11, and so then we would come in and rearrange chairs and put the Sunday school classes down in the jails. As Vestavia Hills grew, so did our churches. Those very first congregations soon outgrew their humble beginnings, just like the city was outgrowing its boundary lines. Vestavia Hills is now home to over 30 churches. It's a community of faith reflecting diversity and a shared belief in the importance of just being together.
Mountaintop is a church that has been here for 2 decades. We were a church created for people who don't like church, and that's still very much a part of who we are.
Name primitive, our people adopted back in the 1830s. Our singing is very simple, it's a cappella. Our preaching is very simple, our fellowship is very simple. And we could meet in somebody's house or out under the trees just as easily as we could meet in a church building.
The name of our church is Liberty Crossings, and we're very close to Liberty Park. The name Liberty Crossings is to show that we love you if you come to church from anywhere in our area.
See, we are part of a denomination called the Christian and Missionary Alliance. In our country today, one of the great fears are other cultures. We've realized that we needed to address a lot of the fear issues. So it's not uncommon in church to hear 5 different languages being spoken.
Woodlawn was incorporated originally in August of 1886. The name changed a couple of times, but from there the church moved to Liberty Park. And really our first service was in November of 1994 in this location. The leaders of Liberty Park Joint Venture knew that a church was instrumental to the growth of their community, but the community also was a very important factor to the growth of this church.
The Episcopal Church already owned this land, and it's a perfect place because it integrates very different communities. To our east and north is Mountain Brook. To the west was Slabtown, which was one of the very destitute, poor areas. And to the south of us was that sprawling, unincorporated community of Cahaba Heights.
When we first started as a church, we were at the Rocky Ridge Community Center, and then later on, with a lot of help from a lot of people, organizations, and other churches, we purchased some property. In fact, we bought 7 acres on Rocky Ridge Road. We were able to build our first church sanctuary and that's the chapel that's adjacent to our sanctuary now.
Vestavia Hills was envisioned to be the place where you'd want to raise a family, the place where you'd want your children to grow up. Those values were planted and were foundational to the beginning of our community of Vestavia Hills.
Before you can branch out, before you can go off on missions and everything else, you've got to strengthen your families first.
The church in the 21st century is the last, or if not one of the last, places in our society where we can actually bring together all generations under one roof for a common purpose.
A couple years ago, my husband and I started looking for a church, and we're an interracial couple. We have an interracial family, I have 2 young boys, and finding a place that really reflected us was very important to us. Walked in, we felt welcome during worship service. You see people on stage that look like you.
It's the place that I come when things are going wrong, when there's a death or divorce or things like that. It's the place that I come when things are going right as well.
And I think a lot of that is because Vestavia is such a family-friendly community.
The original founders saw the church as a necessity because they had the desire to help the community to grow, to learn from each other, and to take care of each other.
You can be cross-cultural, you can break down those barriers, you can have an impact in the community and the cultures, and you can do it through the church.
The community church is vital to the health of the community.
I think the word for community is built off the same word church is used for fellowship. It's a commonness that we have, things we share together in common.
When a church opens its doors to go out and do its work, the community is where it goes.
The light that shines the farthest shines the brightest at home. And so if we want to be able to reach the ends of the world, we need to make sure that we're bright right here in Vestavia, right here over the mountain.
One of the things that I'm convinced of is that no church sits where it sits by accident, that God strategically places churches in different communities.
Churches, they teach people to be connected to one another.
We came as young couples. We have some singles in our class as well, and just kind of, done life together.
Too many people believe that the church is against everything. And the truth is, we worship a God who is for people. And so his church is for the community that we live in.
You could come up here on a Saturday and see the soccer fields being used by members of our city.
One of our projects that we started this year is to challenge our congregation to serve 10,000 hours, whether it's cleaning up the river as a part of the Cahaba River Society.
So the co-founders of the Diaper Bank are actually members at this church. We are serving hundreds of families each month and thousands of families each year.
Often we have people tell us when they come in, thank us for the use of our facilities, and we tell them no, it's our facilities, it's all of our facilities. We're just called to be good stewards of the space we've been given.
We're for the people that we live with, and so we look for ways to be able to do that by having carnivals or throwing block parties or by hosting different events in the city here at Mountaintop.
The Brownie Scouts were meeting here and Cub Scouts were meeting here, and other groups and organizations were needing space to gather, and so we opened the doors of the church to them.
The doors of Vestavia Hills churches always seem to be open. Not just open to residents coming in, but to our congregations going out. Reaching out to neighbors, really just honoring a tradition of making faith and family a necessity here in Vestavia Hills.